The ammunition you see featured in this episode of The Quiet Rifle came to me courtesy of airrifleslugsaustralia.com. This is a new to the market local business from Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. So if you're an Aussie and you're looking for air rifle slugs, this dude is your go-to. We're going to take a quick run through of a few frequently asked questions. Yes, all current stock will fit in most magazines. Do a little bit of research on the NSA slugs and Google around. You'll find the information that you're looking for on a fair few different forums. All the weights in 22, 25 and 30 caliber sample packs will fit in FX magazine. 30 grain slugs and over in 22 may have some issues fitting in some magazines. They may fit, they may not. I've had good luck with my heavier 30 grain 22 slugs fitting with no dramas in the FX magazine. Your mileage may vary. In 35 caliber, 93 grains is the longest that will fit in an FX magazine, and pre-order is open for 35, 40, 45 and 50 caliber weights. But you can also get any of the weights listed on NSA's website for .177, 22, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 and 50 caliber air guns. What a time to be alive. As far as payment goes, any pre-order of a projectile over 93 grains needs to be prepaid when you pre-order it. All other orders can be paid for when stock arrives, or if it's in stock, obviously you just order it from the website and pay as normal. If you look at the prices for these slugs, you'll find that they are very, very, very competitive compared to some of the other options available out there. I think personally they represent excellent value when you're buying slugs that are comparable to some pellets. You know you're onto a good thing, especially when they perform as well as the NSA slugs do. NSA is not new to the game. They have a strong following and they are a good product and they are widely respected amongst the industry. So to have something so affordable and easily available in Australia, mint. Very happy about this. So thank you once again to Air Rifle Slugs Australia. Check them out. You can also get patchworm kits, and there may be some new exciting products showing up on their website very soon. The weather has finally cleared enough to actually go outside. We've had an immense amount of rain where I live recently, and the ground is completely soaked, but the sky is clear. I have mowed my range back in and we're good to go. I feel like myself again. Amazing how the little things in life that you forget after not doing them for a while, when you come back they just bring you so much joy. So I'm very happy to be outside shooting again. Today we're going to be looking at 17.5 grain hollow point dish based slugs from Nielsen Specialty Ammo. Thank you again to Air Rifle Slugs Australia. It's really good being able to get a wide variety of very different slugs to test for different uses and different conditions. The reason why I started my journey with NSA with the 17.5s instead of the bigger, heavier, longer, crazy high ballistic coefficient slugs is because this is not a real silencer. This is an empty tube. Australia has weird gun laws, and apparently we're not allowed to be quiet for some reason. So I'm not allowed to have a suppressor, and having a super light 17.5 grain slug allows me to push it very hard, very fast, without making a great deal of noise. Once you start moving up to, say, like your 30 to 40 grain slugs, you tend to be making, you need a lot more gas to push them. Whereas with these little 17.5s, they are very comparable to your 16 and 18 grain JSBs with how much energy you need to push them. So you can wind up a gun like this and push an 18 grain JSB pellet extremely fast. It won't be accurate because it's a pellet, but you can do that without using a great deal of air. So I've set my gun up and tuned it. We'll go into the tune a little bit later on, but basically I'm running quite a high reg pressure and not a great deal of hammer spring. So the valve is opened and shut very quickly, and I'm still getting over 1,000 feet per second out of these slugs, and it is quiet enough to use on small acreage like my place. I don't have a huge amount of space. I've got enough space, but I don't have a huge amount of space, and it's always a priority for me to be shooting quietly, and having something like a 17.5 grain slug allows me to shoot really fast and really quiet and still have a reasonable ballistic coefficient and heaps of power when that slug actually lands out past 100 meters, as opposed to a pellet which basically just bounces off most things at that range. Speaking of ballistics, let's dive in and look at the numbers. They are the ones that I've got, .2175 caliber. They are also available in .2165 and .217, so pick your poison. The bigger ones, these 2175s, I think the superior liner likes 217 and up, so 217s and 218s, generally pretty good for the superior liner, just FYI. In 22 caliber at least, obviously. They weigh 17.5 grains, they have a length of 0.234 inches, and a ballistic coefficient of 0.075, which is not quite as high as some of the other slugs that you'll see. If you go back through my other videos and you check out those big 30 grainers from H&N Sport, they had a much higher ballistic coefficient and they did handle the wind a little better than these ones did. But this .075 is still much better than pretty much every pellet on the market. So definitely carries a lot more energy and defeats the wind significantly better than a pellet of the same weight. Actual measured weights were all plus or minus 0.1 of a grain. 90% of them were either 17.5 or 17.6 grains out of the sample size of 50 that I actually weighed. So I think these are actually the most consistent weights that I've measured of any of the projectiles that I've reviewed so far. A lot of the other ones were also plus or minus 0.1 of a grain, but the vast majority of these ones were only 0.1 over. So there was only like 3 of them out of 50 that were 17.4 grains, and all of the rest of them were all 17.5 or 17.6. So we're talking like enough deviation that maybe if I was exhaling instead of inhaling when I weighed it, you get a different result. So excellent, very, very, very consistent projectiles. The condition they come in a matte finish. They're not shiny like the FX slugs, but who cares? They all have that same slight marking on the hollow point that we've seen on every other hollow point slug that we've found so far. As far as everything else goes, they come in really, really good condition. They come in a cardboard box with a Ziploc bag inside, and there's 400 of them inside that Ziploc bag. So I was expecting them to be a little bit dented and a little bit munted and a little bit cooked, but no, all good. Very slight markings on the hollow points, but aside from that, nothing else. 9 out of 10. Price, they cost $36.95 for 400 of them. And it's really nice having 400 projectiles in a pack, because you only have to get one pack and you've got enough to do a real solid tune. I've tuned 2 or 3 different times with these slugs just to see how they perform at slightly different speeds, and I've used a couple of magazines each time I've done that, and I still had heaps left over to go down and play and do the accuracy testing. So it's good. For $36.95 for 400 of them, you can really thoroughly test these slugs and really find out whether or not they're going to work for you, and you only have to buy one box. And that basically works out to be $9.23 for 100 of them, or obviously 9.2 cents per shot. So that 9.2 cents per shot compares with the H&M Grizzly at 8.3 cents per shot, much, much lower quality round as far as I'm concerned. I liked the Grizzlies, but they're definitely not the same thing as the NSAs. I think they're a budget round, but the NSAs, when you compare them to something like a Grizzly, that's just epic value for money. It's really good. And the H&N Sport 30 grainers that I tested, they were 12.5 cents per shot, so they were more expensive. And obviously, FX hybrids being ultra premium and fancy, bearing an expensive brand name as well, we're talking 28.5 cents per shot for one of them. So do the math. 9.2 cents per shot represents excellent value. It's mind-blowingly good value. I tried a few different tunes with this. The initial tune that I had for the last FX hybrid slugs, so the FX hybrids are this many grains, and I just slapped them straight in, these NSA 17.5s straight in, and ran them over my little FX Crony, which I'm loving, by the way. Thank you, Giles. They were running, I believe their hybrids were running about 930, between 930 and 950, I think, when I last tuned it for them. And these NSA 17.5s flew out of there at 1,030 feet per second. So a little bit of a difference there. You're gaining about 100 feet per second and losing however many grains it is of lead, but very easy to push these very fast. So I tried that and they didn't really like it. My 100 meter group was a little bit big, not even worth measuring really, but let's have a looky-loo. 2.5 inches, between 2.5 and 3 inches at 100 meters. So I didn't bother playing with that tune too much. I think you could run them that fast if you really wanted to, and still get good accuracy, because that was quite a windy day. But they appear, maybe, I think because of the dish base, I think there might be like a little bit of a low pressure system working with that dish base behind it, which seems like from what I gather, it seems to work better between sort of 950 and 980, and once you get up over 1,000, it seems to make things a little bit weird. But yeah, so I dialed it back and spent 1 day shooting them at 930, and then today I went back to the range after tuning it again, and I tuned them up to 960 feet per second. And the 960 foot second tune was quite nice. I got 10 rounds down range, and if you are happy to let go of the first round on the cold regulator, which was 949, all of the other rounds were, 960 to 967. So extreme spread of 7 feet per second. Got them nice and consistent, and it didn't really take too much work. It was good. We're running 150 bar reg pressure and 21 mil of hammer spring gap to get that. My rig at the moment obviously is running this here big Vlad plenum. That's a total of 75 or more cubic centimeters of air, so if you don't have that, you might need a little bit more pressure or a little bit more hammer spring. And we've got our valve at the front showing 2.5 lines, so it's fairly well, it's a high reg pressure with a low hammer spring tension. There's not a great deal of hammer spring there, and I've wound the valve quite a way in just until it started touching and dropping, so that I could basically cut off the top half of the error that it was giving me, because it was without that valve stop winding in just till it touches, I was blowing out all the way up to like 985, 990. So I brought it back down, and everything was nicely under 970. So 960 to 970 feet per second, they gave me my best results and my most consistent tune. Right, let's have a looky-loo. This is my 25 meter target. I used this to 0, and we shot five round groups, and they are all between 10 and 15 millimeters. As you can see, fingertip covers all of them, so they're very nice and consistent at close range. No dramas there. I think this was the biggest one at like 17 mil. It's a thumb instead of a finger, whatever. But everything works at 25 meters. So I decided that I would step it out, and these are today's groups at 50 meters. I've decided to break from tradition. I know you're supposed to do 5 round groups for accuracy testing. Everyone raves on about it all the time. But I think with lighter rounds, I'm going to move to 3 round groups, because we're really, once at my house, I've always got a 5 to 8 kilometer an hour wind blowing from sort of 8 to 10 o'clock. And it's just super annoying, and you have to get all of your rounds down range really quick before the next gust of wind, and it swirls and it circles, and it's a bit of a problem. So I think I've been selling most of the slugs that I've been testing short a little bit by shooting bigger groups than I need to. So I think I'm going to start shooting only 3 round groups at a time instead, and I'll just weather the storm of hatred that comes my way in the comments. Because we're really testing me at that point. We're not testing the slugs, So these ones, we got some fairly good groups at 50 meters. Not super huge, not super tight, roughly an inch. So 23 millimeters, here we go. We're looking at an inch or so, about there, just under an inch. and I had a nice big group here. I got a bit carried away and kept shooting. Probably should have stopped after the first 5 there, which were an 11mm group, so that was comparable to the 25m groups. But I kept shooting like a muppet, and the wind picked up and kicked me left and kicked me right and whatever. And this one I ran out because I shot too many on this one, so life goes on. But yeah, just under an inch at 50 meters at 960 feet per second. This was one of my groups that I shot at 1,030 feet per second. It would appear that the impact, my impact at least, didn't really like these harmonically. They were consistent, so the groups were the same and the wind was affecting them all roughly the same and pushing them around the same bit. I was aiming here at this black one. But yeah, nothing to write home about there. That was pretty big group, 2.5 inches. So it didn't like 1,030. And finally we have today's groups. So I measured all of these. You can see the paper overlaps in a few spots and there's a few sort of half off. But yeah, this is today's shooting, and it didn't do too bad. So average group size on these, bust out my steel ruler, there we go. What are we looking at here? Roughly 2 inches for most of these. 50mm, maybe a little bit less. And there's a few much nicer groups like this one here at 33mm, so an inch and a half at 104 meters, sorry. So yeah, so the reason why these groups were a little bigger, I think, personally, was because I was shooting 5 rounds at a time. For example, this group up here, you can see that one, we're looking at, 3 good shots, and then the wind circled around to the left and blew me off that piece of paper and blew the group out to 61mm there. So that's a good 2.5, 3 inch group, and it would have been probably an MOA group if I didn't get blown around by the wind. So if we look down here, we're shooting just over an inch at 104 meters. Same again up there, that's a 2 inch group. And then we've got our 3 round groups to take care of here, 23mm, under an inch, and then 33mm, 43, 52, and another 33mm group down there. So, conclusions to be drawn from the accuracy test. I think these show really good promise. I reckon that most of the groups that I think I would be capable of shooting on average would end up being between 30 and 35mm groups at 104 meters, which is pretty good. So I stopped at 104 meters because that's just where I parked the car. Couldn't be bothered moving it. And I was shooting these groups out the back of my ute, off a bipod with my lovely Craft & Lift adjustable stock. Delightful. Very, very, very nice piece of kit. Thank you, Craft & Lift. But, alas, not an ultra stable position, but good. And yeah, sort of a real world way of shooting, I think. Not quite bench rest, but pretty close to it. So good enough for testing ammo reliably, but I had, 5 groups under 35mm at 100 meters, and so this was at the 960 feet per second, so it's pretty quick, but good groups at long range in the wind with a light round. Gotta be pretty happy with that. And then on the odd occasion where I was blown around by the wind too much, because they are much more susceptible to the wind than the bigger, heavier slugs, got to remember that they are only 17.5 grains, so when the wind does pick up, they do still blow around, but the difference is they blow around consistently. My best gauge of it is that anything that I can reliably hit my 4-inch gong, I have a 4-inch gong that ended up being 110 meters away, so little piece of steel, makes a wonderful noise, but I can hit that consistently every single time in the wind with these slugs, and I can't do that with pellets. So when I have shot that gong with pellets, I'll get 2 out of 5 maybe, and miss a whole bunch more after that, and then come back on when the wind dies down. But these, every round, just ding, 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 over and over again. So they're a very consistent round. They're a very high value round, I think. Excellent value for money. And, with results like 30mm at 104 meters, what are you going to do with it? I think if you're hunting rabbits at long range, perfect. Anything for small game like that, rabbits, maybe even a rat, If you can see it and he stands still long enough, I think you could hit it. So, happy days. Very accurate ammo. So, that's about it for today. Big thank you once again to Air Rifle Slugs Australia. If you have any questions, feel free to message them on their website. Their emails and details are all listed on there. Heaps of really good options from NSA on their website, plus the patchworm kits. Go and check them out. They were really good. And it just feels good to be burping and shooting again. If you liked the video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Really helps the channel grow. If I get more subscribers, it's my favourite way to measure my progress. So, yeah, get on it. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.